So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Barbara Edwards. So Barbara, thank you for taking time out to talk to us today. And I love the branding behind us, or behind you as well. I'm very impressed. So you're shaming everyone watching this, I'm sure. So no, it looks really good. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started in your current career?
Yeah, coaching. Gosh, it was a particular set of circumstances that led me down this path. I'm from a classical music background, and I taught piano and singing, and I was also a fitness instructor. So, all very kind of focused, but very much motivational roles and getting the best out of people and things like that, and seeing a spark in their eye when somebody can go, yay, I achieved something. But then I had an accident and I fell. And when I was falling, my heel just slipped. It was a few years ago, it just went from under me. And as I was falling, I remember thinking, if my head hits the deck, I'm gone. So I had to put the two arms behind me to save myself. And that ended up with 5 pins in one arm. So I broke both of them. So I got 5 pins in one arm, and the fracture on the other arm was kind of self-healing. Then it fixed itself. But that left me with 2 broken arms, completely incapacitated, having to be minded, washed, showered, fed, teaching my kids how to do mommy's hair and tie it up and all of those things. So it was actually, I went into a pretty dark space, as you do, having been so, I had my students, I was a choral director, I had all those things going on. So while I was in my bed then, I really had to dig deep, and I had to say, well, hang on a second, what skill set do I have? Not unlike where we are at the moment with people being in isolation or whatever, but what skill set do I have that I can redirect and use elsewhere? Because I knew that what I did, it was something that I always felt, for anybody out there that is involved in music or the arts or creativity, if you have somebody in front of you and they kind of, whether it's an adult or a child, and you're teaching them something, and they get that spark of, oh, I can do it, I achieved something. So there was so much of that I was going, God, I must have something. So I did my research, and before, after all the physio and everything like that, knowing I couldn't go back to teach the piano, I researched what coaching was, what it was about, how it was used, and went into all the ins and outs of it, and realized, actually, do you know what? That's precisely what I have been doing. Not just teaching, I was actually coaching my students, and even the people that I was working through in fitness, which obviously you're a fitness coach, but it was how I was doing it. And I realized, yeah, that is actually what I have always been doing, and I just didn't realize it. So I think it's really important now at this time for people, they have the space to dig deep, to have a look at what skill set they use, and to see how they can use it, whether it's to help someone else, whether it's to, maybe align their business slightly differently or something like that, instead of just being that narrow focus onto one thing, that they can actually say, well, do you know what else I can do? And it could tie in with what I'm doing, but it's a focus and a direction, so that was how I ended up in coaching. And here I am now, from piano teacher and fitness instructor to career and business coach.
Incredible, what a story. And of course, as you say, the skills that you had throughout your career, then the exact same skills then today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is to do with, I always firmly believe that you tap into, people don't realize how much they have inside them. It's not tapped into. And I always believe that there is more to you than you believe yourself. And, I don't live in a big house. I don't drive big fancy car. You know, I'm not making, you know, millions. People think, oh yeah, you're a coach, you're self-employed. Oh yeah. No, I'm not. Because at my core and one of my key values is that actually to see someone else discover what they have in themselves is so much more than the value that you can place on a currency, because it is so important for people to tap into the value system that makes them happy. And they may think that that seems selfish, but actually if you are being true to yourself as much as you possibly can, well then the fact, if you're happy, that reflects then on everything else that you do, on the people that you interact with, and you know, and how you work and how you think. It gives you a better sense of self-esteem and a better sense of confidence, you know, because you know you have found that spot. Now, I always knew when I was, even though I was teaching the music and I loved doing it, I still always felt that there was something, oh, I know there's something a bit more that I could be doing. And it took that fall for me to actually find my spot, my key, where I could put all those skills together and, you know, deliver them to someone else and help other people through it.
Incredible. And that leads me on to ask them, so what services do you offer, or where do you specialize in at the moment?
Well, I'm actually working on putting a program together at the moment, and I'm researching some elements of it, and it's for women, and it's a Mind Your Menopause program, and it'll be for career women, and you know, where they don't actually have to be working. It's just for any woman basically within that age group of, you know, from 40 plus. Now some women will go through menopause earlier, but the majority of women, it will be, you know, into their 40s and upwards. And it's a particularly difficult time for women, and especially if they happen to be, you know, in a very pressurized career, and maybe they have a family and they're trying to cope with all of that too. So the program I'm putting together on Mind Your Menopause is actually to help them, you know, get through it, because there was research done by now the magazine that came to me was HR Review, so I'm sure you know that one, and they did research there a couple of years ago, and it was something like, if memory serves me right, it's about 8% of women actually give up their career because of the effects that menopause has on them. And when you look at that on a broader scale, that can actually be quite big. So I kind of thought, you know, and I am of that age group myself, so I know exactly, you know, what all of that entails. But even as I was going through it, when I had that accident, you know, you still have to be able to set yourself apart in a way to focus on yourself, so that when you get the best from yourself, then, as I said earlier, it reflects back then on everything that's going around you or going on around you. So that's what the Mind Your Menopause program is about. So that's, I suppose that's my pet project that I'm working on at the moment. In the main, I have trained as a leadership and executive coach, but I also include, you know, career coaching and wellness coaching under those. So, and at the moment, it seems to be the career side of it for a lot of people, because a lot of people now, the businesses have closed, and I think, is it the word furlough? I think is the word that was used. Yeah, I saw that. So they're not 100% sure if they're kind of going to be going back to work. They don't really know, you know, because they don't know the ins and outs of the company, what's going on in the background of the company. So they're now kind of trying to find out, well, if things don't go right on that side, how can I basically put their skill set back together, maybe look at something else, maybe change direction, maybe, you know, stay in the same field, but within a different area of that field, you know, where somebody might have been out on sales, maybe they'd like to actually step back and get into the marketing side of the sales and work behind the scenes. So I think there's an awful lot of people now at the moment that will be going through that. And that's where kind of all of a sudden, as I said to you, I kind of haven't been, you know, I've never been busier, because, you know, well, what am I going to do now? You know, how am I going to get through that? But coaches are the same as well. Coaches themselves would be saying, how are we going to get through this too? You know, the majority of coaches probably know more than yourselves there. You know, they'll all give, we all basically, as far as I know, offer, you know, a first hour or so free where you can actually ring and have a chat, and it, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to get that bit of advice. And the majority of coaches that I know are really, really happy to do that. You know, I do it myself often. And okay, I mightn't hear from that person again for 6 months, but it could be 12 months down the road and they say, gosh, I remember when I spoke to you the last time, now I want to do X, Y, Z. Any chance you can help me? You know, so coaches themselves, you know, we do have to take our own advice sometimes, you know, advice that we give out to others. We do at the moment, the way things are, have to look in on our own tool set and see, well, if I was that person, what would I be telling them?
Incredible, yeah. And there's so much, unknown at the moment. It's,
yeah,
we don't know what's coming next. So it's incredible. I think back to my career coaching in school, which was non-existent compared to what we can do now and the support we can get, which is incredible. So I can imagine having a clearly defined path to follow and someone to sit down and talk about the options. What an incredible opportunity. So no, sounds really good. And businesses then, so coaching can really support businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there'd be plenty of, I was just saying to someone this morning, like there'd be plenty of small businesses out there that have closed the door and they're just going, what, how, you know, where am I at? And one of the things that I would say is, you know, look at what your assets are. And I don't mean the physical, you know, like the walls or the furniture or whatever it is. Actually look at what your assets are, and your assets are your customer base. So there would be maybe take PR or marketing, either of those fields even, where you would have a list, say, of clients that you would have worked with previously. You know, they're all actually going to need some help on the far side. You know, so if you were dealing with somebody that was within that sector previously, you know, you can actually touch base with them again and say, listen, I know what it's like. I'm here. What do you need help with now moving forward? So there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting in touch with previous clients you've had, you know, as a coach, you know, talking to business, but business in general then, you know, business to business. The other thing, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think a lot of coaches feel that they're supposed to have all the answers, but we never have all the answers. You know, like that's an impossibility. You can't have all the answers. You actually have to be able to ask for help. I had an issue there looking for, I'm lousy, like a lot of people, at forms. I don't know why. Maybe because it's never just 1 or 2 pages. It's always 40 or 50 pages, you know, and you're kind of looking at all these little boxes that you have to fill in. You know, I've no bother with the actual information that goes on them, but when I see a form, I kind of go, God, no. But I know someone who worked she's a business coach as well, but she came from a semi-state that dealt with funding applications and things like that. And I went, oh yeah, I need help on that, on that field. So straight on to her. So I would look for help from a business coach then that dealt with, you know, those issues. Other coaches then could say, go to a coach who might have a financial background. And maybe they were a QFA or an accountant, and they know all the ins and outs. And so business to business, so you can find a coach that's set within that specific field, maybe that, you know, that you need to talk to. And the financial accountant mightn't know an iota about, say, well, I don't mean any disrespect to any coaches out there, but they may not be as up to par, say, on the sales side of coaching. So you can automatically see where a coach who is, you know, who will coach you in sales and marketing, things like that, can actually work pretty good hand in hand with a coach who will work on the financial side of things, and they can do a trade-off themselves, keeping themselves connected, maybe, you know, connecting with customers and clients that way. So really, it's kind of thinking a little bit outside the box, because we're all slightly, you know, stuck at home. And when you're stuck at home, and certainly here we have our 2-kilometer circle around us that we're allowed to go out and do our exercise in here in Donegal. You know, you really feel isolated and disconnected, even though, and we're on it now on the online platform, it's not the same as being face to face with somebody in a room. So sometimes you feel that disconnect. So reach out to those that you know will have the help and experience that can help you.
Very good, very good. And you think that our value systems have evolved as well?
Absolutely. I mean, when you look around, just generally, I mean, you know yourself, if you ask somebody, well, you know, what are your, you know, what would your core values be? And then, you know, they'll say, you know, family and trust, maybe, and honesty and loyalty, or, you know, things like that. Actually, what's coming across to me now, as with everything that's going on, is how much value people are putting on other people and community, and actually having neighbors, and that value of being able to speak to somebody and connect with somebody emotionally, you know, over the garden wall, you know, which kind of has all but disappeared at the moment. But the thing is, like, if I said to you now, and I said, right, off you go now outside to your neighbor and shake hands, you know, it wouldn't happen. Not because you're being rude or inconsiderate, but actually it's also a thinking of, well, that would have an impact on my neighbor, and it could have a negative impact. You might be fine, but it could have a negative impact. So that value system now is being turned around. It's not just what's important to you inside, but people are realizing, do you know what? I also have to protect the person next door, you know, the elderly lady down the road, or if I see somebody in the supermarket, I have to keep my distance. I have to protect them as well. So I think a lot of people, the value system, it's not just now inside, which is where we would always have felt it in our gut. We're now realizing that actually that value system is very important and impacts on others. So, and that is why I see that value system is changing.
Incredible. And we're talking about individuals and people. So you think even coaching now is more important than ever on a personal level, and helping people explore themselves and their community?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I think coaching now might actually come more into its own. I know certainly where I am, and possibly I'm not sure what it's like as such where you are, but certainly here in Dublin, okay, and in the cities, yes, coaching would be very important, is very popular, and particularly in-house coaching. There'd be a lot of bigger organizations would have the in-house coach. But I think now more so than ever, people are starting to realize, do you know what? I need to find another way to manage with being me, coping with what it is that I have around me and what's going on, and finding the tools to be able to cope with the fact, and I speak from experience here, that I have adult kids who had moved away from home 3 years ago, now back living in my home, working from home, and, you know, that independence and that net is gone. And some people have, you know, 4 and 5 adults coming back into their house after that break of, you know, the kids are aired, they're gone. So there's lots of things there. Whole, I mean, you know yourself, the wheel of life. If you were doing that with a client one day, you know, and say you did it a few years ago, it would read one thing. Then if you sat down with that client now and redid that same wheel of life, you would probably find completely different responses. right the way through on each of the sections, you know, and even if you were to, you know, rehead those sections into their career or their business or whatever it is, it would be completely different to what it was, say, 12 months ago even. You know, so that's why I think, yes, the value, that whole value structure, our role as coaches is going to change, because we're also dealing with what's going on outside, and we're trying to find as much information as we can to help those clients that come to us.
Of course, and even I know you're saying even 12 months ago, I'm thinking even 3 months ago, if you told people that this was going to happen, they'd laughed at you and said you were mad. So it's an incredible time, and it's a time that we all need to be careful and reflective and understand what we're going to do and what we're doing. So no, definitely interesting times. And when we talk about businesses, you'd have maybe some advice for businesses when they're facing such a fluctuating market and difficult times.
Yeah, it was like I said earlier, look at what you've got. Look at the resources you have. And like you know, so I had a list of clients, and I sent them all a link, and I said, listen, I'm just going to do an online chat. Anybody who wants to come, you know, and obviously on the various plans, no one person has to see another on screen. So I was the only one that could see them all. So the confidentiality side, you know, was fine if they wanted to join in. But that was just a cup of tea. That was just touch base. How are you getting on? Letting them know that, yeah, I'm actually still here, and you can still drop me a line. And it's keeping those lines of connection open, you know, and letting people know that you're still there. Yes, it might be difficult for you, and it depends as well, I suppose, on the type of business that you're in, of how you connect, but definitely connect with your client base. Connect with any stakeholders that you've been involved in. Let them know you're there. Let them know, yes, you're struggling too, but, you know, there will be an end to all this in place. And when that end comes, that you will be there to do, you know, as I say, depending on your business, X, Y, Z, and keep just dropping that, keep reminding them, you know, because with everything that's going on, you know, little reminders. I mean, you just ring them and say, hi, how are you doing? You know, so to me, connection is very important.
It's as simple as that. Just picking up the phone, saying hello. Amazing, amazing. And would you have any advice for other coaches out there, or how should coaches be helping each other?
Oh, well, I don't know whether I said it to you in our pre-interview or online, but we can be our own worst enemies. You know, we have to learn how to take some of our own medicine, and sometimes when I'm sitting here going, oh, and it does come in waves. I mean, I'm human. I don't know about you, but sometimes the whole enormity of what's going on will come in a wave like grief, and it can weigh you down, you know, and you kind of go, oh gosh, I have to pick myself back up from this, and I have to move on. But I would say we need to we take our own medicine, picture ourselves as the client. And if I was my own client, and do the name of the tool that we use has left me, but you know, we put out the 3 chairs, and you sit in one chair and you're one person, and you sit in another chair and you give the answer, and you sit in another chair and you get. So I have kind of role played nearly with myself, where I have gone around and I'm saying, right, well, I need to do this, and then I move to the other chair. How would I answer a client if a client said that to me? I would probably tell them X, Y, Z, and then I go, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. If that's what I would tell, or not tell, because you know yourself, we don't tell clients, but if that's what would come up in a session with a client, well, then that's actually what I'm going to do. So I had to put myself in my client's shoes, which we all do anyway. You know, I mean, you have to have empathy with a client. and literally turn the decks back on myself for what I have learned to make it work for me. And to be honest with you, in a sense, it's kind of how I've ended up here online with you talking today. You know, so it does work, but we have to, and reach out to other coaches. As I said earlier, I reached out to another coach that I needed help with on business forms, applications for grants and funding, you know, because that was her sector. You know, so don't be afraid to reach out and, you know, ask for help. I mean, we are human, you know, yes, we're coaches, but we are not a Bible of information. We have what we have, and we are always learning. And that's the thing with coaching. We are continually learning. And sometimes we actually learn from our clients when they are there in front of us. And we realize, gosh, yeah, you know, and maybe I could take a different approach this way. And maybe I could do it, you know, slightly differently the next time this issue crops up. So we are constantly learning as coaches.
Incredible. No, I love that sage advice. Be your own client. So amazing. So we all need to be doing that. So no, very, very good. And I'm wondering, so what's next for Be Coached? What's the plans for the future? I know it's hard to see the future, but what's next on your plans?
Well, I obviously I want to continue helping people tap into themselves and be their best selves. But I'm also, like, I have been a trainer through the teaching as well. But so I'm putting the courses together. I'm working on the Mind Your Menopause and really trying to get that up and live and going. And yeah, so it'll be training. There'll be a lot of online, and I have another, you know, other work that I do within the wellness sector, and there's a Facebook page on that, if I can mention it, on that as well, which is wellexpo.ie. That happens to be my another wellness part of Be Coach that I do. And yeah, so there's stuff planned for that. So I am making sure that I am taking my own advice. I am not sitting back saying, sure, it'll be grand. I am making sure that I am preparing for the rest of the year, trying to make the most of this time. And I'm lucky though, because my kids are grown. My youngest is 18 and my eldest is 26. So the four of them now are pretty much, you know, reared, except for the fact now that there's a couple of them here working from home.
Back home.
And it's, yeah, well, you can imagine.
Well, love it. I don't have that problem yet, but in time, but no, very good. Amazing, Barbara. So how or what's the best way for people to reach out to find you online?
People can find me, hopefully my wee background is there showing up. It is Barbara at becoached.ie or www.becoached.ie. And of course there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Twitter. If you're a tweeter, it's at becoached1. And yeah, social media is, you'll find me anywhere there.
Brilliant. Amazing. Well, thank you again for your time today, Barbara. That was brilliant.
You're so welcome. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope I made sense to some people out there.
For sure. No, 200%. There's no doubt. And thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. For sure, please do share it on social media, and please do check out the links below and visit Barbara on her social networks and say hello, and visit her website as well. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.